Hey guys, and welcome to the FitPro Social with me, David Kyle.
And me, Ash Burley. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night from wherever you are listening to in the world. And welcome to this week's episode of the FitPro Social with myself, Ash, and we had the lovely Dave with us, of course. You get to put up with just us two this week as we're talking about quite an interesting topic, which both me and Dave come across all the time, which is this kind of hesitation in following up with people and making those sales. And I think we should kind of dig into this a little bit in today's episode, because I do honestly think this is what holds back so many businesses, not just in the fitness industry, but so many businesses. They miss out on so many opportunities because they're not following up. And I think we should really dig into why people maybe don't follow up, and maybe some of the things you can do to help you make sure you follow up effectively as well. But before that, hello Dave, how are we doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, interesting one, especially based on last week's episode as well, where last week we were talking about collecting reviews, why people are a little bit afraid of doing it, why people are not doing it, how to best do it. And obviously we had a task for everybody last week to try and generate a load of new reviews and to publish them as well. So let us know how you got on with doing that task. But today, we've got the reviews, but now we need to make a load of new sales. So Ash, let's kind of dive in. What do you reckon the first place is we need to look at when it comes to not following up or chasing leads?
Well, I think the first thing we need to dig into is the concept of following up anyway. And I'm going to go on the assumption that everyone listening to this is following up with people, at least trying to follow up with people, understand the concept of following up. But I think that's the first place we need to have a look. I think some people don't do it. I can remember doing a survey in our Facebook group a few months back, and I was asking the question, like, what do people do? Like, when a lead comes in, what do you do? Do you sit and hope that somebody then that lead turns into a sale? Do you have a welcome email or a follow-up email? Do you have a sequence, or do you get on, do you call them? Do you speak to them? Do you message them? Whatever it is. And the majority of people said it was more of a sit and hope approach. And that made me realize very quickly there's a problem here, because just because you maybe put content out there, put an offer out there, put an ad out there, that's in reality one point of contact that you're having with that particular person. The chances of somebody being able to trust you that quickly and hand over some money to you is very little. But also the chance of actually somebody remembering to come and sign up or to get involved with your service is also very small as well. I think that's where the importance of following up is, because we have to be, and we'll dig more into this as we go through this process. There's quite a few times you have to follow up with someone normally in order to make that sale happen. And I feel that because we have to follow up with them, I think because from our point of view, we think, well, that's all we know. We're just sat there thinking, it feels like I followed up with this person 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. It feels like I'm badgering them. It feels like I'm just getting on their nerves. But in reality, that's our problem. That's how we're thinking. On their side, they're actually dealing with so many other things going on in their life. It's probably not like you're badgering them at all. And I think that's an area we need to kind of tuck into. We need to start thinking about, are we feeling that we're being pushy when in reality we are not being pushy? And I think that's maybe the first place to start with why people don't necessarily follow up.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things, like you post on social media every single day and you're just like, oh, I can't post about this topic again because all the followers are going to get bored of seeing this topic over and over and over again. Well, the chances are they probably only saw one post from you from the last 2 weeks, yeah? They're not going to be seeing your content all the time and suddenly get bored of it. So you have to keep getting out there, you keep putting content out there that's great to the audience. And this is likewise why we need to keep following up with the prospects who are messaging you. They might have messaged you at 10 p.m. at night where they're having a mini crisis because tomorrow they've got to wear this specific outfit and it just doesn't fit anymore, and they've just messaged you, and then you message them back, but tomorrow comes and they feel a little bit better about themselves and they kind of dismiss you, and then you think, oh, so I'll just leave it there. But in their head, they're like, oh, I didn't feel great wearing that item of clothing. And because you didn't follow up with them, keep chasing them down, they're going to get more frustrated and more frustrated and more frustrated, and then finally reach out to somebody who's going to get back to them instantly. That person then that comes first obviously is going to win. So it's not over pushy either. And I think this is where a lot of people kind of get a little bit scared because they feel like they're pestering people, they're annoying people, they look desperate. And these are other things that we're going to talk about through this episode today. But being pushy is because you care. They reached out to you because they want your help. They believe in you. They've seen your stuff and they want to work with you. Your job now is to show them that that is the right decision for them to get them on board to come and work with you.
Yeah, I think I kind of just alluded to there that you should never be concerned about following with someone and reaching out to someone. At the end of the day, for them to become a lead, they've interacted with you one way or another. They've said their interest in a particular thing or they've shown a level of interest. So for you to reach out with them, you're not doing it completely cold. You're literally getting in touch with somebody that has shown a level of interest, and in the most cases, has probably asked you to contact them anyway at some point. So you're just doing that. And you cannot just ring them once. You cannot just text them once. You cannot just message them once. You have to be consistent because, just like Dave said there's so many other things that could be going on. You've got to get the timing right. So you want to do this at different times as well. And just remind people that you're actually there. It really is not being pushy. It's like Dave said, it's about you caring about actually trying to help that particular person. And I do think we can maybe talk about that as we go through this process a little bit. So I think some other things to talk about. But this caring aspect, I think, is important to chat about because I think a lot of people go into this sale process quite desperately. Sometimes I think there's a bit of desperation there to make that sale, and I think that's something
That
that can actually hold
shows,
us back.
that really does show, yeah.
Yeah, it really does show when you're speaking to people, when you're following up with people. If you do calls with people, you can tell in the mannerisms, the way they're talking, the questions they're asking, or maybe not asking as well. And I think that's something that probably has an effect on why we don't follow up. And I think we should maybe look into that as well. So let's just kind of move through this a little bit. We've talked about the pushy side of it, and hopefully you can understand that it's not being pushy. They've asked to contact you. You're speaking to them. You're trying to help them. You're caring about them. And we've also talked about the importance of actually having to do this. So we understand what follow-ups are. So what happens next? Once you actually follow up with somebody and they actually get back to you, they respond back to you. I also think this is a bit of a barrier too. You either tend to go one or two ways. You're either going to get onto a call and have a conversation with them, or maybe you're going to try and close some kind of offer, or at least talk about your services in maybe a DM conversation, email conversation, whatever it is. Like, I've found from speaking to people and working with people that this is quite a big barrier. A lot of people don't know how to close off that conversation and get that sale, or close off that conversation and get it onto a call. Like, do you find that with people that you've worked with?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the fear of actually having to talk to somebody. Like, granted, back in the day, probably when we were kids, or maybe just before we were born, you or me, all transactions were done face to face. Like, it would be done with a handshake. So you'd have to actually physically speak to that person face to face to close a deal. Some deals will have been face to face and then it being sent off with a letter in the post to secure the deal. But these days, because we can do so much from our phone, we can literally get the phone out, a couple of messages, and we can close from there. It kind of feels like that has to be the normal way of doing it. But we are human beings. We're supposed to be connecting to each other. We buy from each other. And it's so much harder to sell if that person can't hear you, feel you, touch you, smell you, see what you're like under pressure, when you're happy, when you're smiling, and all these other elements of selling. So if you're just sending a cold DM and they're having a conversation with you, and we all know this from the past. Imagine when you've had your boyfriend or your girlfriend, think of one of your old exes, and you sent them a message and you were meaning one thing, but they've read it as something completely different. And then it's been like, oh, that doesn't read right. Oh no, I need to change that. There's something wrong with that. And this is the same. And this is why when you get people on a phone call or a Zoom call or WhatsApp call, whichever way it is, once you can actually talk to somebody, you can hear so much more from their voice, from how they say things, from how they express things. And you're going to feel a lot more confident then in making that sale. But at the same time, you don't want to seem desperate on those calls as well. You need to stay confident. You need to stay professional. You need to ask the right questions and obviously then let them talk as well.
I think that's quite an important thing you mentioned there about this, the compared to cold DMing, to cold messaging. We all know this as coaches, how to communicate with people. And we know that actual verbal communication, written communication is such a small percentage of it. And that's why calls make a big difference. You've got tonality in your voice when you're talking. And you've got, if you're on a call like we're talking about here, you can see mannerisms. You can see whether they're smiling, whether they're full of energy, whether they're sat down in slumps, whether they're nervous, all those different kind of things. And a lot of that sales process goes through that non-verbal communication, that non-written communication, because very quickly when you see somebody, you make, rightly or wrongly, a decision whether you trust that person or not. And as the conversation goes on, that trust starts to build up. So by actually picking up the phone and giving them a call or jumping on a Zoom call with somebody, the chances you actually making that sale is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I do know a lot of people struggle with the idea of using phone call follow-ups. So of course you can have a follow-up email sequence, you can have DM sequence, you can have whatever going out to them. But I still honestly think, and I normally recommend this to people if they've got, especially in the early days, is just ring them. If you've got the number, ring them. There's a client in the incubator who does purely online. A lot of people think, oh, it's online. You can't ring people. You have to have all these crazy automations. No, runs an ad, gets a number, downloads a lead magnet, he picks up the phone, he rings them. Do people not answer? Oh, yeah, they don't answer sometimes. When people do answer, do they say no? Like, who are you? Yes, that happens sometimes. But that's something you need to try and learn to deal with, and that's fine. There are going to be times where people don't know you are. There are going to be times where people are just like, oh, I haven't got time for it. There are going to be times where people don't ring or don't answer the call. And it's about having those sequences and processes in place. But it is really important that you maybe think about looking at these other ways of contacting people, not just doing text, not just doing messaging, getting on calls and giving them a ring, because it's going to increase the chances of you actually creating that sale. And I think that leads us nicely on to, how do you mentally deal with the idea of being told no on a call? So is it that objection handling? Like, how do you do that when someone says, no, I don't want to speak to you. No, I don't want to listen. No, I'm not interested. Like, what do you do? How do you deal with that thing? Because I think that's probably something a lot of people struggle with. They don't like being told no. Maybe they're concerned about what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I think the fear of rejection is obviously probably the biggest one. And it probably is that biggest hurdle for most people. And I'm honestly talking from my own experiences here. I hated doing phone calls. So the first position I filled, as you all know, is somebody to do the sales calls for me, because I just didn't like having to phone somebody up and not know what was going to be said on that other side. The fear of rejection, but also like the fear of unknown. Are they going to answer the phone and be like, oh, hi, I've been really looking forward to this phone call? Or are they going to be answering like, who's this? Why are you phoning me? Is this a spam call? Are you trying to steal something from me? And I think that is the fear of unknown, which a lot of us go through initially. But likewise, if someone says, oh, really sorry, I can't speak now, then that doesn't mean like, go away, stop talking to me, never phone me again. That could mean they're in work. They've taken their kids to the swimming pool and they're just sat waiting for them to finish so they can go home. They're busy making their dinner. Maybe they're sat on a busy train. There could be 8 million reasons why people say no initially on the phone call. And likewise, when you're having this great conversation with somebody and you're thinking, oh yeah, maybe 1 or 2 messages, and then I'll send them a closing message, try and get that sale, and they don't reply, they could literally just be about to board a plane to America on a 9-hour flight, and that's why they haven't replied really quickly. They could have just walked into a busy meeting. That's then take them off course, they're off track, they're not thinking about you, and then it's kind of gone downhill. So if you don't keep following up with them, you're going to lose out. Likewise, if you get those no's, it doesn't mean it's the end. You just have to quickly address the situation. Is no problem at all. When is a better time? I've got tomorrow at 6 or tomorrow at 7. If you can answer their question or answer their no with a follow-up that's positive and give them 2 options. 2 options is always the best. They then have to pick one of 2, which is kind of like a cheat code almost. It's like when you're saying to somebody, so do you want to join? I've got a £97 or I've got £150. Which one do you think is best for you? They then have to pick. You're not just saying, do you want to join? Yes or no. You're saying, you're going to join. These are the 2 options. So if someone says, no, Ash, I'm just too busy now. I just can't talk to you right now. You're like, I totally get that. I was literally short on time as well. I just thought I'd chance you now. Tomorrow, I've definitely got more time. Is 3 o'clock or maybe 4 o'clock tomorrow? Let me know. And then they'd be like, oh. And then again, this is where you just get better at doing these calls over and over again. But yeah, no doesn't mean the end. No is, you should almost take that almost as a challenge, as a, you said no, I'm going to change your mind here. Let's go for it.
Just means no, not now. I think that's all it literally means. I find these kind of sales calls and sales conversations quite interesting. I think we go into it, and generally speaking, I think we approach it. A lot of people approach it that there's two options for them. There's yes or there's no. Yes, I'm buying. No, I'm not buying. But that's not entirely true. There's actually three general options you tend to get on sales calls. The first one is yes, they're going to buy from you. The second one is no, they're not going to buy anything at all. They're just not interested in the service or product. The third one is they're going to buy from somebody else. And I think that's an important thing to go into calls with, because when you do exactly what you've described there, Dave, where you give them, say, just two options, it helps remove the thought of something else. So it's no longer, okay, yes, I'm interested in this. Theoretically, they could be looking at other places as well. So as soon as you start giving them less options to look anywhere else, it's like, oh no, actually, there's no other option. We're going to talk tomorrow. Like, I'm the person you're going to go and speak to, and you can do that within your conversation, within your messaging. Because otherwise, if you don't do that and you don't start getting them to commit to other things and you don't follow up, that other option, that third option, is going to be there, as in they're going to go and buy from somebody else. And I think it's an important thing to remember whenever you go into any of these conversations, that there's not the two options of yes, they buy, no, they're not. It's yes, they buy him, they're not going to buy any product like this, or they're going to go buy it from someone else. And if you can approach it with those things in your mind, you'll start to see very quickly how important that follow-up is, because somebody else, your competition, will be following up with them, and they're going to get that sale if you don't do it. So always try and approach these sales calls with those three options in mind, at least as far as you're concerned, because it should help make it a little bit easier for you.
I think one of the things that's least talked about, me and you talk about this a lot in this industry, especially when it comes to marketing, is the buyer's journey. Like, people don't talk about it enough, because all people are concerned about is sales, 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 sales. And I totally get that is the lifeblood of a fitness business. But if you go into every single consultation, into every single message, into every single phone call, thinking that this person is going to buy, and that's all you've got is that attack, that formula, then you are going to trip yourself up many, many, many times. For example, now, if someone sees your ad today and they're getting married in, let's say, 2 years' time, in their head, they're probably thinking, I'm not going to start this for at least another year. I just want to see what's going on here. So they're not unaware, they're aware, but also maybe they're just window shopping. They're not actually searching to buy, they're just having a look what's out there. So if your first port of call is, cool, you're getting married, let's get you on our 6-week program, then you're probably going to turn them away straight away. So when you go into any sales consultation, whether it's messenger, whether it's face-to-face or anything, you need to learn about their needs, goals, desires, wants, pains, frustrations. You need to get to know them. And then once you know what it is they're about, you can then follow the correct path for you. And I know we both do this in our own business, is when we speak to people, we learn a little bit about them quickly, and then we decide, do I want to carry on this conversation because it's on my terms, they're using my time, or do I want to dismiss this conversation and tell them they're not a good fit? For example, if an online FitPro came to me and they just got started, I would say no. But I know somebody you should go and speak to, which is Ash, because we can't run ads for a brand new person. Yet if a studio owner came who's got maybe a studio with 150 clients, charge £100 a month for something, then be like, yes, you're more than welcome. Let's have a proper conversation. But I don't go straight in for the kill straight away. And again, I think that's probably where a lot of us trip ourselves up, is any inquiry, it's sell straight away, where that inquiry might have needed a little bit of nurturing first, a little bit of discovery about who they are, what they want, why they need you. And then you can restructure that conversation in a better way, which will probably help you make the sale quicker. But because you've learned about them, you now know which approach to take with them, whether it's softly, or all out attack, or literally, here's the card, pay here now type of thing. Yeah, I mean, you have to get to know them.
Yeah, I think that's why this whole, I mean, we call it like we call it flywheel marketing. This idea of, you have these conversations with people, maybe they lead to come in, they're not quite right, like they are maybe just window shopping. It might be that, like, from our perspective, we have people that jump on, we'll have calls with them and conversations, and they'll go, oh, well, actually, I'm studying, I'm at uni at the moment doing a particular course, or I'm doing whatever, or I'm doing a studio business at the moment, I want to move on to online, I'll be doing it the next 6 months, 12 months, or whatever. I could try and force that sale down there, but I know it's not right for them. Or I find as much information as I can, and then I use that to help guide that nurture process forward. And it might be the fact that they will buy from me in 2 years' time. And that's completely fine. Like, I'm in this for the long haul, not for the short haul. So there are going to be times where people come on and think it's not the right fit for me right now. But because we have this, I said, this kind of flywheel marketing approach where even if somebody's not the right fit, they're going to fall into my flywheel, which basically means they're going to constantly see me on social media. They might be in one of our Facebook groups. They might be on our email list. And if they're not, I'm going to make sure they are through that conversation. So I can actually guide them to different areas. I can maybe offer them certain resources to help them at this particular stage, give them some advice at this particular stage. And by doing that, it means they're always going to be in my infrastructure or my ecosystem, if you like. So they're going to be seeing that over the next year or two until they're ready. And I still have follow-ups going out with them. If I know that there's something, say, like in maybe they got I had one recently, for example, was doing a nutritional exam before they're going to do anything. So I made a note when it was, and I just followed up a few months later. How did it go? That's the kind of process you can do here. Yes, you need to sometimes do a quick follow-up to get the sale quickly, but if it's not the right fit and it's more of a no, not now, you need to have those processes and systems in place to help you with that.
Yeah, that's such a massive one. So I had a conversation yesterday with a guy, and the consultations, he's booking loads of people in, but they're not showing up for the consultation. I was like, cool, let's have a look at the follow-up process. And it was like, thanks for booking in. Don't forget your appointment's tomorrow. Your appointment's in 3 hours. And they were like the standard text messages. And they were like, I mean, they're just standard. It's super easy. But we need to get that person motivated. We need to get them primed, which is the big thing. We need to get them ready with their card, excited, motivated, and wanting to buy from you. So the first email is totally fine. Hey, just confirm you're now booked in for your consultation. But first, let me introduce you to Jenny. And then every single day, then you introduce them to a new success story. Maybe a little bit about you, why you got started, what your philosophy is, what type of things they can expect from you. You're basically answering all the questions that they're going to have. So when they turn up for the consultation, they're literally super excited and motivated and primed, ready to buy from you, which will then make that consultation so much easier. So even if you're messaging somebody on Facebook and you're having a nice conversation, we also need to refer back to our current clients. So when they say, you know what, yeah, I'm looking to lose weight because I'm really struggling, I've got a wedding coming up, you're like, perfect. No way. We just had a client, Katie. She's literally been going through this program and she's getting married in 2 weeks or in a month. And that's building a connection there. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just not unsure because I've tried a few dresses and it's sewing up and we're going to get married in this place. You're like, no way. I know somebody that works in that place. And again, you're building that next connection. That's not a success story. That's another connection. And this is why when you're selling online, it's so much harder because you need to build those connections quickly. You need to knock down those hurdles so you can make that sale. So in these follow-ups, you need to start introducing them to your success stories, to your philosophy, why you do your founder story, why you do what you do. So when it actually comes to you making that close, you're confident because they're super pumped, they're excited, they're primed, they're ready to go, and they want to buy from you.
And I think that, is why it is important to have these different types of follow-up processes. So even though you're going to have things on your social media accounts, you're going to have things in emails going out, you're obviously going to have phone calls with them. But you have to do like Dave said today. You have to have, if someone books a call, then have an email sequence going out that has the testimonials and stuff on there. It could be that when even if they're going to book a call, for example, if you use paid ads, one of the things we can do sometimes is we can retarget people with certain testimonial ads. So if somebody books a call, we can have an ad running for someone who's booked that call, and then we'll make sure that in their social media they're seeing certain ads about people that have done certain things that they're trying to buy. So there's all these other
exact formula. We did the exact formula for a big celebrity coach that we had because they were doing churning out consultation bookings, but once they booked, it was an advert then to those success stories. So even though the booking's 2 or 3 days away, they're now not seeing the "Are you interested?" ads. They're seeing success story ads. Like, that's such a good ad suggestion, that is.
And I think that's the key thing about follow-ups. I think a lot of people see follow-ups as just, I'm just going to message them, I'm just going to ring them, I'm just going to whatever. There's more to it. And especially when it comes to online, there is a lot more to it. You have to have these multiple touch points in different areas, because by doing that, people are going to build up trust. Because if they start seeing you in different areas, whether they consciously interact with it or not, if you're coming onto a call, let's say if you're coming onto a call with Dave and you book this call with him and it's in 3 or 4 days' time, and every day you get an email through reminding you about the call, introducing them to a new testimonial story. And if you don't know something about testimonial stories, check out what we talked about last week. Have a testimonial story that goes out there to help build that trust. And then next thing is you see Dave posting content on his account. Next thing you see an ad come up about a testimonial about another person that is helped. And then maybe you spend some time on different Facebook groups and you see, oh, there's Dave again helping somebody out here.
Yeah.
Or maybe you see a podcast like this and, oh, there's Dave again talking in my industry again, helping people out. Imagine how much you're going to trust Dave when you get on that call. Imagine how much you're going to think, I want to go and work with this person because he's everywhere helping people. It builds up that level of trust. And that's the key thing about follow-ups. It's not just about one single message going out. Do you want to buy my stuff? Do you want to buy my stuff? You thought about this anymore? That's very old hat, business to business style follow-up. That is like, we're talking about selling to consumers most of the time. So we need to be thinking about that overall picture, about how we can build up that trust and that excitement before we even get to the point of sale. So they are literally, like Dave said earlier, they're primed to make that sale. They're sat there with a card waiting to hand over some money to you. Like, it's just a formality that you're getting on that call with them. And that's the position I think you should be in.
Hey guys, we're going to take a real quick break here now.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So if you're loving this episode and want to listen more often, then please make sure that you like and subscribe by clicking one of the buttons around wherever you're listening or watching this right now.
Perfect. Cheers for that, Ash. Let's get back to the episode. And we just call it building people into your ecosystem. They might discover you from a referral, which that's the reason they've messaged you, and that's on Instagram, and they've never heard of your fitness business before, simply because somebody comes to your session, you've got a client online, and they've just introduced you to that person. You start the conversation, and then we're dropping in these success stories, but we're dropping in links to your websites, to your Facebook page, to your email list to download stuff. So we're getting them in your ecosystem. So you're having that natural conversation on Instagram, you drop in hints to other locations, they're learning more about you. The more they learn about you, the more they're going to start trusting you, the more they're going to start opening up. And then that text message or what Instagram conversation might take a week, but in that week's time, because you've been following up in the correct way, that then becomes a real easy sale to do. It's not spammy, it's not pushy, it's not difficult. You've just had a real good conversation. But I think
that correct way is actually, so I think that correct way is quite an important thing to talk about, because what is the correct way and how do you remember to do this? We've talked about lots of different things here already. And that means that there's probably going to be, for once, to sound like a broken record for anyone listening to me and Dave, it means in order to do this effectively, you need to probably have systems and processes in place to help you go and do it. And I think we can quickly go and talk about that. But before I jump into that, I just want to quickly mention one thing. We haven't really talked about this yet. Is what happens if you have lots of leads already, or maybe you've had potential leads come in and you've just not followed up with them. A lot of people say to me, oh, it's too late. And I always say, no, it's definitely not too late. And there's quite a famous story. I'm pretty sure this is the right guy. So apologies if I get this wrong, but I think it's Mark Cuban that did this. And he, if no one knows who he is a guy that's on the Americans version of the Dragon's Den. I can't remember, Shark Tank, I think it's called. And he bought a American football team that he wanted, and he noticed he was big support of this team. And he didn't. When he went there, he noticed that most of the seats were emptied. It wasn't doing very well, financially not too well. So he's like, I'll buy it. The guy's I think he's a billionaire now, but he bought the team. And he said, right, we're going to go and fill this up. And he walked into their main offices, the sales offices for them, dragged the table in the middle of the sales room. He got basically the folder with all the past clients, leads, people that bought tickets in the past, people that bought season tickets, put it down, open it up, rang the first one. This guy's literally like a billionaire. Sat there in the middle of it, and it's like, I'm doing this because I need to make this work. You're going to go and do the same. And he followed with leads from literally 5, 6, 7 years old, and he filled that stadium. He sold all those tickets because he still went back and followed up. So never think just because they're old leads and you've missed out on some stuff that they're dead in the water. Yeah, you might not get the best conversion rates anymore because they might have gone done other stuff, but there's still a lot of money left on the table there, even for older leads.
That's a weird one, because that takes me back to another story there about our backs against the wall. Like, we've all been in real difficult situations. Maybe finances are not looking good. You get an unexpected bill. You've had loads of clients leave. Something bad has happened in your business and your back really is against the wall. And next thing you know, you start doing things which probably 3 or 4 weeks ago you would never have done because I'm too busy to do that. My business is doing too well to do that. And like you just said, this guy here is a billionaire, yet he's literally got all these leads and he's just phoning them one by one. And that could be a mindset trick to play on yourself. Maybe at the start of every month or at the start of every corner, take all the money out of your main bank account, put it into a savings account somewhere, and almost go with the backs against the wall approach. Do the things that you thought, that's beneath me now because my business is at a certain level. I've got too many clients to do that and stuff. Because when your back's against the wall, you will do those real difficult things. You will pick up the phone and phone those leads rather than just hope that they book in. But what I want to go into next was, we noticed during the summer holidays, we'd get leads submitting their details and we'd phone them up and be like, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm just on the beach in Spain and I saw your advert. And I'm thinking, why have you applied now? And she was like, oh, it's just because I'm thinking when I get back. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So what we did is we put a 4-week no sale follow-up text message in place. And it worked really, really well, especially like Ramadan, summer holidays, Christmas holidays, Easter holidays, where these people are applying at certain times of the year, but they're not in the correct place to be able to move forwards from there. You then have that 4-week no sale follow-up because obviously they didn't buy from you, so they go into a long-term follow-up. That then texts them with a real simple text, just like, hey, Ash, I was just going through my diary and it's probably been about a month since we last spoke. And I just wanted to check in and see how everything has been. And I was gobsmacked with how many people replied to that super, super simple message. They'd be like, hey, Dave, I'm really sorry. I was on holiday when I applied and then things got over the top of me. But now things have settled down and I think I'm in a better position. I was like, wow, okay, that's like opened up a brand new chapter. So you've got these automations that we talked about, which is like straight away, somebody submits their details and you're following up. You've got all the success stories and case studies and everything like that. But that doesn't mean the lead is dead. And like you just talked about there, you had all these other fans once before that used to come to the stadium that don't come anymore. It doesn't mean that you've got all these details and that is the end. You just can't do anything. The best thing to do is just send that first email, send that first text message. Yes, you might get 10%, 15% of the people unsubscribe. You might get a few not very nice text message reply messages, but who cares? You've just removed them from your list and now you're going to move on. And then you start doing the weekly newsletter. You start building on that weekly newsletter. More of those people are on your list, start to view it, start to click buttons, start to submit their details. And before you know it, starts to snowball and generating loads of inquiries that way as well. And then every now and again, you drop in the 9-word email. Such a genius email to do. And I mean, you're generating leads from all these old leads, which you kind of disregarded at once upon a time. And now they're coming back into your fitness business when they're ready.
I think that whole process you talked about there, and I think the bit you mentioned there, like who cares, I think is quite an important thing to maybe dig into just a little bit, because it's easy enough to say after a bit of experience, like who cares? And I think a lot of people think business owners are a bit harsh and a bit kind of like thick-skinned. I think because you have to be. You do get, as you get more experience, you get better at dealing with that kind of stuff. But to me, one of the easiest ways to deal with it is to systemize it. We've talked a lot about, okay, you're on a call, you get fear of unknown because you don't know what's going to happen. They're going to say yes or no, they're going to be excited or not. The follow-up process, are they going to ignore you or not? And I think if you can sit down and go, okay, what's this process going to be? You could have maybe, if you're going to have a call with them, have a bit of a script in place. It doesn't have to be rigid, just some key things. Okay, if someone responds this way, what do I do? If someone responds that way, what am I going to do? When I get to the end of the call, how am I going to deal with this? And I think if you have a clear path of what's going to happen, that kind of who cares mentality is much easier, because you're no longer unknown. There's no unknown there anymore. It's like whatever happens, you've got a solution. You can send them somewhere. So if the outcome is okay, it's not the right time from the moment, you have a process to put them in. So if you use a software like LeadDeck, for example, you can have that call with them. You can have a very simple tag or move them to a certain stage in the pipeline, and then you'll have this automated follow-up sequence that goes out. It puts them into maybe your email list. It recommends a testimonials to them or different social groups they can go to, or it might be that 4-week follow-up is there that goes out to them. So you have them put into these different systems depending what they are. And I think the moment you start adding these systems in place and adding these kind of scripts in place to help guide you, it helps remove some of that unknown. And I do think a lot of the issue when it comes to follow-up really comes down to that fear of the unknown. If you can remove it, I think you'll find this whole process a lot easier.
Oh, that's another big subject there about using sales scripts. The amount of people we speak to who says, I don't use a sales script. Like, what? So you just make every call up on the whim every time. Yeah, I was like, how many sales are you making? Not many. I was like, that is why Formula One don't go to a test track and just dive straight into the race. They practice going around that lap several times. Yeah, they need to know every bend, how fast they can go into the corners, and all this type of stuff. Sorry, I don't know much about Formula One, so I'm just making things up.
You're right.
Yeah, but I mean, they practice. You don't dive straight into a very heavy bench press or deadlift. You do a load of warm-up sets. You get the body moving. You loosen all the joints up, and then you go into it. So if you're watching this and every phone call you do is without a script, you don't even have a framework or formula or anything in place, you're literally just phoning up and like, "Are you right, Ash? Do you want to buy?" If you literally have nothing like it in place, then you are going to make way less sales than if you had a script, a framework, a formula. Even if it's just a formula, start with an engaging question. Aim to find a connection. Ask opening questions, things that are going to tell them a little bit more about you. And the answer to the right questions, yes. Now ask, do they want more information? And then you move into your program. You don't have to follow a script step by step by step by step. But if you don't have a framework to follow, for us, we've got a presentation. Every client that's joined us will have seen this exact same presentation because we know the presentation works. So yeah, I think the fear of unknown of what people are going to say, but also the fear because you don't know what to say either. I don't know, I get thumbs up there. It's probably it's probably a big one.
Yeah, and I think the way to get rid of that is just to systemize it. And I know it sounds a bit scary, but I think taking the time, if you're struggling with sales, you're struggling with follow up now, if you're going to do anything or take anything away from this, it's just give yourself like an hour or two of the next few days and just sit down, write any distractions and think, okay, what is my process here? What is my process when somebody interacts with my offers or even my content for that matter? That if you've got offers and stuff on it, what do I do? What happens when someone reaches out to me? What happens if someone's commented that they want my particular offer? What happens if someone's clicked on my ad and then comes through to us? Write that process down. What's the first thing that you do? What's the next thing that you do? How do you get them onto either a sales call, get them into a sales conversation? On that sales call, sales conversation, what's this framework, if you like, that Dave talked about there? Like it's not a script, it's not rigid. You don't want to be reading from a script, but you want some things so you know what to do, like how to go and deal with it. What happens after that, depending what the outcome is, and what happens over the next week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, and a year, because all those opportunities are there for you to upsell, and all of that is part of the follow-up. So for me, that's probably what I would try and do. If you can, give yourself a couple of hours just to sit down and have a think about what that actual process is and map it out.
Yeah, 100%. So when I got started, and you all know, I went from boot camps to nothing to suddenly selling packages for like £1,000 for a 12-week small group. I had a presentation. I followed the presentation every single way. Not a single person came and didn't get that presentation. That allowed me to go from charging £5 a session to charging $997 for a 12-week program. And then yesterday just reminded me, I had a call with another incubator client, and I was like, "Oh, do you use a presentation?" He goes, "No, this is what I do." And he pulled out like this little flyer he has, and every time a client comes in, he goes, "Cool, we're going to go through this consultation." And he opens the flyer and he has all the questions there that need to be answered, and he writes down notes for everybody. And he's basically prescribing, like the doctor would, prescribing what they're going to get from the 12-week program. This then shows the person you're speaking to that you're writing notes and you're really interested in what they're having, but it also allows him to not go off track, not forget where he's up to, not to make things up, because you don't really have control. It's being able to have total control of the sales process. So you're not getting the no's or I don't know or call me back later or why you even call me to start off with. You know what to say when these things pop up.
Definitely. Cool. I think we've covered quite a lot in this week's episode. So yeah, like Dave said there, it's important to have these things in place. So for anyone that's going away, we like to give you away something to go away with now. It's becoming a little thing. So what I would do is go away and have literally give yourself a couple of hours, think about that process, write them down. You don't have to build anything on it yet. Just think about that process and then what's going to happen at all those different stages. Once you've done that, then every now and again, just start building those little bits out, those little sections out, adding more automations into it, adding more systems into it. And then that should make life a lot easier for you when it comes to follow up, and get away some of that fear of the unknown that tends to happen when it comes to follow up with people, and have those systems and processes in place. So I think that rounds up nicely for this week's episode. I do want to mention one thing, and you should see a link somewhere around this, by the way. We have our Winter Summit coming up, which is amazing. There's still tickets left. You'll see Dave and me posting stuff about it over the next couple of weeks. It's on the 28th of November in Birmingham at Birmingham City Football Club. And tickets are available if you want to come along and check it out. We have loads of guest speakers. Of course, myself and Dave will be there. We have a number of different workshops on there. Loads of guest speakers in talking about lots of different things, but primarily, I'd say this one's more around kind of the sales side of things. Yeah, like more of a sales focus compared to some of the other stuff we've done in the past. So if things you're struggling like today, for example, if you're struggling with sales for your fitness business, whether it's online or offline, definitely come and check this out. It's a great opportunity to meet other trainers as well, other business owners, other gym owners and studio owners. Have a chat with them all, mix with them all. Come and see some other experts who work in the industry as well. Lots of workshops going on. And it's also free food, which is always nice. It's always good when you get free foods. But yeah, if you want to check it out, the link's around this video somewhere. And I think that's it from us this week. So I guess that's bye from me.
And goodbye from me. See you all next week. Bye. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the FitPro Social. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes.